Welcome to this explainer. Okay, if you're a focused learner gearing up for the 2026 OCR A-level music exam, you are literally in the perfect spot. Today, we're cracking the code on a total masterpiece, the brilliant, super energetic first movement of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's Sinfonia Concertante in E-flat major, K364. We're going to visually map out the exact structural, harmonic, and melodic tactics Mozart used so you can walk into that exam room feeling absolutely confident. Here's the architectural blueprint for our revision session today. We'll be looking at 1. Meet Mozart's musical toolkit, 2. The core motifs explained, 3. The double exposition structure, 4. Harmony and tonality tactics, and finally, 5. Texture, instrumentation, and rhythm. Let's dive right in. Section 1. Meet Mozart's musical toolkit and the Mannheim School influence. You see, to really get this piece, you've got to understand that Mozart was essentially borrowing some incredibly flashy acoustic tricks from the famous Mannheim Orchestra to give this Allegro maestoso its undeniable spark.
The very first high-yield term you need for your exam is the Mannheim crescendo. Now, unlike a slow, gradual build over many phrasing arcs, this is a sudden, extreme dynamic shift. It often happens in just the span of a single bar, jumping abruptly from very soft to very loud. It creates this instant theatrical drama right out of the gate.
Next up in the toolkit, we have the Mannheim rocket. Picture this, a quick, explosive upward flourish, usually a really rapid scale or arpeggio leaping right out of the texture. Mozart practically stole this crowd-pleasing move to inject immediate, propulsive energy into the melody. It's a literal rocket of sound. Then there's the Mannheim roller. This is where a rising melodic line is layered right over a sustained pedal note, all while accompanied by a steady crescendo. In this piece, you can hear it building massive rolling excitement in Idea E, that's right around bar 46, where a repeating, rising trill swells over a tonic pedal. It's totally textbook. And finally, we've got the Mannheim sigh. This one's a really subtle two-note descending slur. It kind of acts like a musical exhalation, adding this pleading, emotional decoration to the melody. You'll find it featured super prominently right at the start of Idea B in bar 11, giving that whole phrase its distinct emotive vibe. Moving to Section 2, the core motifs explained, and the building blocks of the Allegro maestoso. What's absolutely fascinating here is how Mozart takes those borrowed tools we just talked about and builds 3 recurring core motifs. Seriously, take a mental screenshot of this motif matrix right now. Examiners absolutely love it when you can accurately track motifs X, Y, and Z throughout the score. Motif X is your dotted, fanfare-like idea heavily influenced by Johann Stamitz, showing up in 3 variations. Motif Y, that's a falling arpeggio figure Mozart uses brilliantly in call-and response in Tiffany between the strings. And Motif Z is a descending stepwise figure that reliably marches us from the dominant back to the tonic. Keep these 3 handy. But here is where Mozart completely throws out the rulebook. Instead of giving us a standard first subject, transition, and second subject like your typical sonata form, he just subverts all expectations. He hits us with a staggering 17 distinct, short melodic ideas, labeled A through R in the score. It's just a barrage of melodic invention. And actually, many of these ideas are left tantalizingly undeveloped. Next up, Section 3, the double exposition structure, and mapping the architectural blueprint. Let's see how all these ideas build into a loose but highly clear double exposition sonata form. This form is an absolute hallmark of classical-era concertos. The crucial thing here is visualizing this timeline across the entire 382-bar movement. We kick off at bar 1 with exposition 1. Then bam! At bar 74, we launch into exposition 2. By bar 174, we hit the development section. We return home with the recapitulation at bar 223 and cap it all off with a massive coda and cadenza starting at bar 328. This side-by-side comparison is exactly what you need for those tricky exam questions about how the 2 expositions contrast. Exposition 1, that's an orchestral showcase, stubbornly staying in the tonic key of E-flat major and throwing out those multiple short thematic ideas. But Exposition 2 belongs entirely to the violin and viola soloists. It does the heavy harmonic lifting, modulating to the dominant key of B-flat major, and introduces dazzling new virtuosic ideas the orchestra just couldn't play alone.
All right, Section 4, Harmony and Tonality Tactics and the Interior Design. With the overarching structure standing tall, let's peek inside and examine exactly how Mozart anchors these massive sections and keeps the listener oriented. For the most part, the harmony here is beautifully functional and pretty straightforward. The tonal plan relies heavily on your primary chords, so mostly tonics and dominant sevenths in root position and first inversion, plus Mozart constantly uses tonic and dominant pedals to really firmly anchor the harmony. But, he's not boring. He tastefully sprinkles in fleeting chromatic chords like the diminished seventh and the super-dramatic Neapolitan sixth, giving us these striking, unexpected splashes of color amidst all that classical clarity. Oh, and here is a fantastic, surprising acoustic fact to drop into your essays. To make the viola sound brighter and more piercing against the whole orchestra, Mozart originally instructed the viola players to tune their strings up a semitone higher than the written notes. It's a genius acoustic cheat called scordatura. Even though it's not used in every single modern edition of the score, it perfectly highlights his brilliance in balancing the sonic weight of his two soloists. Finally, Section 5, Texture, Instrumentation, and Rhythm, and bringing the blueprint to life. Let's dig into our last section to see exactly how the instruments interact to create that grand, majestic feel.
So think about it. With 17 different short ideas being constantly thrown around, and without that traditional long-form thematic development, how on earth does the piece manage to keep relentlessly driving forward without ever feeling disjointed?
The answer is right down in the rhythmic engine room. The inner string parts are constantly churning with driving quavers. Mozart leans heavily on accented offbeat patterns to add this infectious, continuous energy. Notice how there's almost always something moving in the accompaniment, even when the soloists are playing a sweet, lyrical melody. Plus, he intentionally splits the first and second orchestral violas to add immense, rich textural depth to the middle of the harmony. The momentum literally never, ever drops.
A prime example of this innovative texture is the transition between the orchestral exposition and the solo exposition. Look at how, instead of a hard stop, the soloists sneak in right over a fading orchestral chord, dovetailing seamlessly. This was such a groundbreaking textural trick that Beethoven famously adopted it for his own violin concerto years later. Mozart was quite literally setting stylistic trends for future masters. To wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought for your revision. Throughout this entire movement, Mozart shares motifs, dovetails entries, and uses flawless imitation between the solo violin and the solo viola. He treats them not as a star and a sidekick, but as absolute, conversational equals. So how does elevating the often ignored viola to an equal footing change everything we know about the classical concerto? Ponder that as you review your notes, and you'll be well on your way to mastering this spectacular piece. Happy studying!